Art of Happiness. My name is Tam, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Erin Shimoni. You're not going to say hi?
Hi.
Thank you.
I don't want to talk over you.
Do it.
Hi, hello.
So today we're going to talk about some of the challenges it is as a millennial mom kind of getting started and even exploring hobbies, right? Yeah. And I think one of the bigger, obvious ones that we already know that we face is just like our mind is completely overwhelmed with everything.
Yes, the invisible mental load that everyone talks about.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I mean you're outside of just taking care of yourself, and that's just bare necessities. Right. Let's be honest. Mm-hmm. You know, you're trying to take care of your family. You're trying to make sure your kids are getting to their games or practices. Trying to make sure they're getting schoolwork done. You got to get groceries. You got to make sure that you're
making doctor's appointments.
All those appointments, everything.
Yeah, on top of making sure they have shoes for school. Mm-hmm. They have summer camp plans.
Oh my God.
They have all the things. But we also have to plan a vacation so that we all have family time.
I'm getting stressed.
He's stressed just talking about all these things.
Yeah, I don't think
on top of that, you just got work. You just got work too. Normal work stuff, right? And not to mention the, 2 a.m. wake-up call if I'm your toddler.
Yes.
Just to add to the difficulty of the mental load because you're exhausted.
Yeah, it's all that, right? Yeah, so, that's just the obvious stuff, right? So we already know that mental load is a huge blocker for millennial women stepping into the hobby arena, right? Yeah. But on top of it, you also have what I think you and I talked about, which was option overload. Mm-hmm. You're like, finally you put it into your headspace that you're like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to look for a hobby. But then where do you even start? Yeah. There's so many hobbies out there. Or if you're like me and you Google it, you only get 3 hobbies. And you're like, I hate those. And I don't want to try any of those. And then you're like, well, I guess hobbies aren't for me.
Yeah. And not to mention the overwhelm of trying to pick something and commit to it and then feeling overwhelmed by that idea of buying things and trying things and figuring out how to do something. Yeah. That alone, that process of thinking through that is overwhelming.
Well, yeah. And we even kind of joked at another episode about how we felt that if you jumped into a hobby that you had to be a perfectionist at that hobby. You had to master. That's the word. You had to master it. So you're like, what if I commit to this hobby and I hate it, but now I've got to master it because I'm a perfectionist and I've got to see it all the way through. Yeah. That
and then you just don't start anything because you're like, well, that's not worth it.
Because it's all just a mental block and now you're like, and I'm shutting down.
Right. You're like, it's better just not to do anything at all. And then you just repeat. Rinse and repeat every week.
Yes. Well, and then you're like, okay, so I've got this busy schedule. It's already too much. Right. So you're telling me that the next thing I need to do is create yet another thing to put on my checklist and find time for that to be able to do. And that is purely for myself. Well, if I'm looking for ways to streamline my life, to make my life easier, the first and easiest thing to do is to remove something about myself.
Yeah.
Which is the time of self-care. Right. Which is why none of them have self-care.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. 100%. And I think that it's that overwhelm. You just can't wrap your mind around carving out that time for yourself when you have so much going on just mentally.
It's very tough. And then if you continue to look into the schedule factor, your parenting life sometimes doesn't necessarily fall into schedule time, right? There's constantly stuff that's just going to pop out of there that you just don't expect. I don't know, your little one's going to get hurt, and now your whole day is kind of transitioned to making sure you take care of it, or the sick, right? Your kid's sick.
I'm just dealing with that.
Don't even have to go to an injury. Let's just go to winter.
Those few hours I was hoping to have to clean the house and just get the normal things done is completely gone. Because they're sick.
Yes.
Yep.
So you look at your schedule and you look at all this time and you look at what's available to you, and it's, we're built to be, productive beings, right? And so you see hobbies as this luxury that is self-care time that you just don't have the ability to put in your schedule.
And you don't feel like it's valuable.
You don't feel like it's
compared
valuable.
to everything else. Yeah.
You don't put the value there because you feel that if it doesn't produce something, then it's not productive. Yeah. And then therefore it's not bettering your productivity to get to where you need to be, which sometimes is just surviving the end of the day. Yeah. Right.
Do you ever feel too that at the end of the day you just have, or end of the week you just have decision fatigue? If somebody asks me one more time what I want for dinner.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Just the smallest decisions, you're just I just can't. I'm done.
Do you find that there are some days where if you hear the word mom one more time, you might just explode? Yeah. And it's just
why? Where is Dad?
He's sitting right next to me.
Every time. I'm literally he's sitting right next to you, but you are screaming across the house for Mom. I come down and I'm WTF.
My favorite thing is after, because it's funny is it's not just me that gets to the point that it's like if they hear mom is going to explode, Pat also, if he hears mom is going to explode. So his new thing is, if I can tell when he's starting to be like, what is going on? Because he'll go, hi. Just go right into the kid's face. Hi.
I'm mom.
Can I help?
Yeah.
I'm available too.
Yeah.
What can I do?
That's really nice that he does that. I mean, that is a huge part of like, you know, people talk about default parents and the mom often is that. And we are both fortunate enough that, especially I think through this journey and us taking back some of our own time, it has helped retrain our husbands a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like they were always supportive, but just helping them to
pick up on the cues.
Yeah.
They're more aware of the cues because you're more aware of the cues.
Yes.
I think
that's true.
A lot of this is just us becoming more self-aware about taking time for ourselves.
And asking for it.
For it, which then makes others be like, oh, yeah, she's a person. She needs time, and she shouldn't have to ask for it necessarily. Yeah. We can all work. Hi, I'm Dad. I can help too.
Yeah, I love that. To all the dads out there, just use that. I love that.
Hi,
I'm Dad. I'm here. I'm right here.
So we look at like those are like the uphill battles that moms, specifically millennial moms, have as far as like why hobbies just aren't just right there available for them, right? Like you just have so much going on. You just don't put the value on it because you're not seeing how can this help me achieve all the things that I need to get done today.
And I think really just changing your mindset that like hobby time equals self-care time, right?
Yes.
That's really what it is, what we're talking about here. And I think there's a misconception on what hobbies are. And we've talked about this. Obviously, our whole podcast is about this. But I think that was the other thing is this misconception that a hobby has to be like this thing that you do that makes something or, you know, it's creative or, you know, I don't know. I think it falls into these categories that people pigeonhole themselves. But
or feeling selfish.
Feeling selfish, yeah. So I think just taking that time, dedicated time, whatever it is, something that brings you joy. That's what we've concluded, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you just look at a mom, right? You spend your whole day making hundreds of decisions. Like you said, the decision fatigue. Like going back and thinking about to even just like last week, all the decisions I had to make. And one of those days, the decision was to not do a hobby. It was to sit and scroll aimlessly.
Yeah.
You know, and what I wish I would have done looking back and thought about it is instead of scrolling, why not jump into ChatGPT, which is still on my phone. So my thumb wanted to do a little scrolling and then just say, what can I do with my time right now? You know?
That's a good way to help like give you some accountability when you don't have like somebody else there to do that. I
Absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
So I think what we're trying to do today is help millennial women understand that there is reason behind their madness of feeling like I like why now? And it's you're right. Like there are a lot of challenges that you're facing, and you're very valid in all of those feelings that you're feeling, and there are ways around it. And it really, honestly, though, it all starts with you.
Right.
It all starts with taking that time, right?
And I think we know, or I know from personal experience, that if you do not take that time for yourself, like you are going to burn out and you're going to take it out on everybody else around you, right? And and you may not like actively do that, like actively take it on everybody else, but if you're burnout, you're going to be not sleeping well, you're going to be grouchy, you're going to not want to do things with your kids, you're going to be less productive at work, all of these things. And it's just this effect you have on your family. And I don't know, I came to a point where I was like, something's got to change. Like, I'm going to lose my mind.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, we both had this feeling of like, we need something else. We need something more in our lives. And if you're a mom, millennial mom, that's feeling this, like, we can totally relate, and this journey of hobbies has really helped to pull us out of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you have any tips that you would recommend for our folks to kind of start working into finding hobbies and overcoming those barriers? Like I know we kind of talked about one being like where if you just feel like you just need to just like death scroll, instead of death scrolling, why not jump into ChatGPT and be like, what can I do that's a hobby that I'll take care of 10 minutes right now? Here are the supplies I have. Go.
Yeah, I think that's a really great tip. I think what we've concluded, the biggest tips we have is start small. Like don't overwhelm yourself and feel like you have to go all in. It's not black and white, right? So just 10 minutes of something that's out of your normal day-to-day habits can really change your day. Accountability is a huge one. So for us, either finding a buddy, which we have done.
Right. Buddy system!
That's really nice. But if you don't have that, definitely talking to your partner about like dedicating the time or putting on your schedule. Those are also accountability tools. Scheduling a class. That's another way you can be accountable to yourself. You pay upfront for a class and say, I'm going to this class, you know. I think those two things, so starting small and just accountability of like setting that time in your schedule are the two things that I would recommend.
I think those are great recommendations. And I think also another good thing to recommend would just be like trying to change the way you think of as hobbies, because I think hobbies are seen as a luxury.
Yeah.
I mean, like even just look at now, like with prices of things going up, it's really hard to want to justify spending money on hobby supplies when, you know, gas and eggs like are so expensive, right? Like you try to justify those things, but there's ways that you can get hobby tools that aren't so expensive.
Oh, definitely.
Or like, you know, something that just like gets you outside, right? Like embrace stuff like that. And also like taking the idea out of the fact that you have to, if you start a hobby, you have to commit to it. And like this has to be the hobby and you have to work through it until you master it, right? It doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
Start a hobby, try it, practice it. If you're not interested, move on. That's okay.
That's right.
That's not a failure. Yeah. That's you just being creative for a moment, realizing it wasn't, you know, as interesting as you thought, and you just moved on to the next thing. You're just being curious.
That's right. I love that. Curious. Yeah, and I think too, stop comparing yourself to people on social media.
Oh, huge.
That's a huge one. Huge. If you could do yourself a favor, which I have not been 100% successful in this, but getting off TikTok and Instagram daily, because you just start seeing all these people that are making all these things, and you don't see all the behind work of that they've probably been working on that for years to master that skill. And this like comparison of feeling like, oh, I need to make something and then turn it into a business so I can sell it. You know, that's not about that at all. No. Like if you get into that trap, like you'll end up feeling more burnout because you're trying to chase something that's going to just add more stress to your life. So it's not about being productive, like you said, and or making money. It's about nourishing yourself, like your soul and your body, so that you feel better as a person.
And I think you already kind of touched on this, but I want to make sure that we really stress it, is there is a lot to be said about building a community around you that supports hobby culture.
Yeah.
And I can personally say from my experience, like I know I kind of talked about my origin story of being like, you know, Pat had a whole bunch of hobbies and I didn't. And I know I struggled with respecting his time on those because I didn't understand the value of them, and I didn't have any personally. So there was like a little bit of jealousy in there. And I can say now that like, I now understand how I can understand the value of hobbies and how those can play a very important part in helping you find yourself and also staying positive during difficult times. And having Pat already see the value of those and being supportive of those really creates like this culture of like continuously trying to find that time, right?
Yeah.
So I think you touched on that earlier, and I just wanted to really stress on that. I think there's a lot of value to that.
No, that's a great point. That really is. So.
And then modeling that hobby culture, like your kids see that, and then they're going to carry that onto their lives. And so you're breaking that cycle of creating people who are stressed perfectionists,
that
right?
are just focused on school.
It's just focused on school. It creates a culture that your kids can fall into.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. Thank you for.
Okay, well, you know, I've got a couple of great points to toss out here. But yes, I think that's really like those are just some ideas that I think that we would recommend as far as, do you have an action item? Like, what can you go do? Like, I feel like you're like, well, okay, so I've listened to this episode. Now what do I do? Well, the very first thing you do.
I think there's two things. Like, look on your calendar and say, okay, where can I carve out? Where can I put on my schedule? This is my self-care time for maybe let's 10 or 20 minutes this week, like this upcoming week. Go ahead and do that. And then I'm sure almost everybody, if you just sit for a second and you like think, there's probably something that's been pulling at you, some thought you've had that you're like, oh, I'd really like to try that. Just figure out somehow to
make it intentional.
Dabble in that, intentional that, right? Be like, all right, I'm just gonna jump all in. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm not gonna worry about how it's gonna go. I'm just gonna jump in and try it. And if you can't think of anything, and that's okay, because I felt like I had that for a while too. We both did. Just setting like time and going and doing like a walk. I think almost anybody,
Great.
You can just go out and walk, right? Because you'll find that just clearing your brain, where it's just you and it's like peaceful and quiet. And
I love it. I'm right there with you. I'm like, tell me what else am I going to feel on this walk, Erin?
I think you will be amazed at how it can just really change the trajectory of your day.
I do need to put more walks in my life. You've been doing a lot of walking recently,
really
and
nice.
I can tell that you really enjoy it. I might have to it just seems so easy. I just put on shoes and just walk out my door, right?
Yeah. I think I've done both where I've like listened to music or audiobooks while I'm walking. I've done where I'm just like quiet, and honestly I almost prefer the quiet.
Do you really?
Surprisingly more, yeah.
Do you feel like you're listening when you're doing
I don't know. I think
or do you think you're more in your head and just walking through things?
Maybe both, a little bit both. But I think I also find myself just like mind wandering, kind of just letting your brain just rest a little bit.
Where's it wandering, Erin? What are you laughing about right now? Okay, forget about what we were talking about earlier. Now I just want to talk about you. What are you wandering to?
Oh. No, like just thinking about things.
Yeah?
I don't know.
You don't have anything specific
no,
to share with me right now? Right on the spot? Well, we've got everybody listening.
I sure don't, damn. I don't.
Dang it.
Sorry.
Okay, so so that's what we're saying. What we're saying is there's a lot of reasons why millennial women are struggling to find hobbies. And you're all completely valid in your challenges because they're all very real challenges.
Right.
It's not because you're just, just giving up.
Right. There is nothing wrong with you.
There's nothing wrong with you.
We're all here.
It's just truly the culture that was built around women, millennial women as moms and hobbies, right? And so you have every right to change that trajectory. And you should start by doing exactly what Erin said. Just find that intentional time, be intentional with it. Think of something that's been interesting and pulling at you. Schedule that in that 10 minutes and just give it a whirl.
Yep.
And it can be a total failure. That's okay.
Yeah.
Try another 10 minutes another day.
Right.
And I bet if you keep doing that, you might find something really, really great in there.
Yeah, I agree. Great ending.
And wrapping it up today.
Thanks, Tam, for that.
Of course.
It's great chatting with you and everyone. I hope you enjoyed this topic. We'd love to hear what you guys are trying out there. So leave us a comment or a message because it always gives us ideas, things to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Join us later. Bye. Thank you for listening to The Art of Hobbiness. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And for more Erin and Tam fun, be sure to follow us on all socials for behind-the-scenes footage on our journey to find hobbiness.